Life has a way of leading us into the unknown, doesn't it? We map out our plans, dreaming of how everything should go, only to find ourselves in places we never expected. We experience setbacks, losses, and closed doors that seem to contradict what we had hoped for. But here's the truth. Even when life doesn't make sense, there's a greater plan at work. God sees a future that we can't yet imagine. Today, let's explore what it means to trust in His wisdom, even when the path ahead looks uncertain. We've all been there, caught in moments when nothing seems to align with what we've prayed for or envisioned. Maybe it's the unexpected career setback, a challenging relationship, or a health struggle that brings us to our knees. It's natural to question and to feel lost. In those moments, we might even wonder, is God still with me? But faith is about believing that He's guiding us through the fog, even when we can't see the way forward. His plans are perfect, even when ours unravel. Timing is everything, and God's timing often feels different from ours. We want answers now, but sometimes He says, wait. This waiting season isn't wasted. It's in the waiting that He prepares us, that He strengthens us and aligns circumstances for our good. Remember, God sees the entire timeline of our lives. When He calls us to wait, He's preparing something beautiful that we can't see yet. He knows the precise moment when everything will fall into place. It's easy to get overwhelmed by our emotions when life throws us curveballs. Feelings are powerful, and they can easily lead us into despair or fear. But faith calls us to rise above those feelings, to cling to the truth of God's promises. In every trial, there's a chance to shift our focus from our circumstances to His character. He's proven His love time and time again. So, even when it's hard, we choose to anchor ourselves in His unchanging nature. We often find comfort in having control over our lives, but trusting God means loosening our grip. When we surrender our plans to Him, we invite Him to lead us where we need to be, not necessarily where we want to be. It's scary to let go, but it's in this surrender that we find freedom. As we release control, we open our hearts to His guidance and allow Him to do what only He can. Transform our lives beyond anything we could have orchestrated on our own. In the hustle and bustle of life, it's easy to get swept up in anxiety and worry. But God invites us to find peace in His presence, to rest in the knowledge that He is near, even when things feel chaotic. When life doesn't make sense, He calls us to draw closer to Him, to lay our burdens at His feet. In His presence, we find a peace that transcends understanding, a calm that carries us through even the most turbulent storms. The Bible is filled with stories of people who went through seasons of wandering and waiting. Think of Moses, who spent years in the desert before leading his people to the Promised Land, or Joseph, who endured betrayal and imprisonment before rising to a position of power. God used their wilderness seasons to prepare them for greater things. And in the same way, He's using our struggles to refine us, to deepen our faith, and to equip us for the journey ahead. Life's twists and turns can feel daunting, especially when we can't see what's around the corner. But there's beauty in the unknown, too, because it's where we learn to rely fully on God. In those moments, we're reminded that we don't have to have all the answers. God knows what lies ahead, and that's enough. Embracing the unknown means stepping out in faith, trusting that He's leading us towards something good. Seasons change, and so do our circumstances. We go through seasons of abundance and seasons of lack, seasons of joy and seasons of sorrow. But through it all, God's faithfulness remains constant. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. When life doesn't make sense, we can rest in the assurance that He is with us in every season, walking alongside us, guiding us, and holding us up when we feel weak. Worrying about the future doesn't change it, but trusting in God does. When we place our hope in Him, we shift our focus from the uncertainty of our circumstances to the certainty of His love. We can't see the full picture, but He can. We don't have to carry the weight of worry because He's already working everything together for our good. Hope in Him reminds us that even when things seem bleak, a brighter future is on the horizon. Knee of the hardest virtues to practice, especially in seasons of uncertainty. But God often uses these times to mold our hearts and build our character. When we are patient, we align ourselves with His timing, trusting that His ways are higher than ours. Waiting isn't passive. It's an active choice to trust in God's wisdom. While we wait, God is working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances and preparing us to receive what's ahead. It's easy to see pain as an obstacle, a setback, or even a punishment. But with God, our pain always has a purpose. It may not be evident at first, but the struggles we face are shaping us, drawing us closer to God and teaching us things that we might not learn in comfort. He transforms our pain into growth, using it to strengthen our faith and refine our character. What feels like breaking down is often God's way of breaking through. Life isn't always about the mountaintops. Sometimes it's about the valleys. These valley moments, when things seem darkest, can be the places where we experience God most deeply. It's in the valleys that we learn to lean on Him, to find strength beyond our own, and to trust that He's leading us through. Even when we feel weak, God's power is made perfect in our weakness. Every valley is a stepping stone to higher ground. When life throws us off course, we often find ourselves asking, why? We want explanations and clarity, but sometimes God's plan requires us to trust without answers. Faith is choosing to believe in His goodness even without knowing why things happen as they do. Instead of getting stuck in the why, we can focus on the who, the God who loves us, knows us, and promises never to forsake us. God's plans are beyond anything we could ever dream up ourselves. While we may have goals and dreams, God often has something even greater in mind. He has the power to turn our losses into gains, our disappointments into opportunities, and our pain into purpose. When we trust in His plan, we allow Him to guide us toward a future that far exceeds our expectations. What may seem like a setback today is often the setup for a blessing tomorrow. Fear can paralyze us, making it hard to move forward or see the good ahead. But God calls us to surrender our fears to Him. When we give our anxieties and doubts over to God, we make room for His peace to enter our lives. Fear may knock on the door, but faith allows us to answer with confidence, knowing that God is with us. When we surrender our fears, we embrace the freedom that comes from fully trusting in Him. Life is a journey filled with ups and downs, twists and turns. But God wants us to find joy, even in the midst of uncertainty. Joy isn't dependent on our circumstances. It's rooted in the assurance that God is with us every step of the way. We can celebrate small victories, appreciate each day, and find joy in knowing that every part of our journey has purpose. When we find joy in the journey, we show gratitude for the work God is doing within us. In times of doubt and confusion, God's promises are our lifeline. His word reminds us that He is with us, that He has plans for our good, and that His love is unfailing. When everything else seems uncertain, His promises are steadfast. Holding on to these promises allows us to weather life's storms with hope. Each promise is a reminder that God's love for us is constant and unchanging, regardless of what we face. Our perspective is limited, but God sees the full picture. When we ask God to help us see our circumstances through His eyes, we gain a new understanding of our situation. What looks like a loss may be a redirection. What feels like an end may be the beginning of something new. By asking God to guide our perspective, we align ourselves with His vision for our lives and find peace, even in difficult times. Pain has a way of narrowing our focus, making it hard to see beyond what's immediately in front of us. But God's plan is bigger than our pain. He can take the broken pieces of our lives and turn them into something beautiful. Our struggles don't define us, they refine us. With God, every tear, every hardship, and every setback is woven into His plan for our good. When we trust Him with our pain, we open ourselves to the blessings He has in store. Every wound we carry, every scar that tells a story, finds comfort in God's unwavering love. His love isn't just a concept. It's a force that restores and heals. In moments when the pain feels insurmountable, God's love acts as a healing balm, reminding us that we are cherished and whole in His sight. The world may judge, but God sees our true value, and His love meets us exactly where we are. Embracing His love allows us to release bitterness and fear, making space for healing to flow through our hearts and minds. When we experience loss, it's easy to fall into despair, feeling as though a piece of ourselves is missing. But God can transform even the deepest grief into gratitude by opening our eyes to the blessings that remain. Though we may not always understand why we have to say goodbye, God grants us the strength to cherish the memories, the love, and the lessons that our loved ones left behind. Gratitude doesn't erase grief, but it helps us honor what we've lost while focusing on the beauty still present in our lives. Emotions can be overwhelming, and in moments of sorrow, faith can feel out of reach. Yet faith isn't merely a feeling, it's a choice. When we choose to trust God, even when our emotions are turbulent, we anchor ourselves in His promises. Faith becomes our steady ground, transcending temporary feelings and focusing on the eternal hope we have in Him. It's in these moments of choosing faith over fear that we experience the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. Pain often isolates us, making us feel as though we are alone in our struggles. But God places people in our lives to support and encourage us. Within His family, we find people who understand, who have walked similar paths, and who remind us that we don't have to carry our burdens alone. When we lean into community, we allow God to work through others to bring us comfort and strength. Together, we can navigate life's challenges, lifting one another up as God intended. Just as seeds break open underground before they sprout, our own growth often comes through brokenness. God uses our pain as fertile soil for growth, helping us develop resilience, compassion, and wisdom. In each hardship, there is a lesson, a piece of growth that we carry forward. We emerge from trials stronger and more refined, able to face the future with a deeper understanding of God's grace and purpose. The blessing of surrendering our efforts to control life. We often find ourselves exhausted, burdened by worry and fear, yet surrendering to God brings a peace that control can never provide. When we release our grip on the outcomes, entrusting our lives to God, we experience the freedom of surrender. In letting go, we acknowledge that God's wisdom and love are greater than our own, allowing Him to work miracles through our trust in His plan. Pain has a way of shifting our perspective, helping us see what truly matters. In suffering, we often find clarity, recognizing what is worth holding on to and what we can let go. God uses our hardships to help us focus on His eternal truths and priorities. Through the lens of faith, we gain perspective that shapes our lives, leading us to cherish each moment, each blessing with renewed gratitude. In our efforts to control life, we often find ourselves exhausted, burdened by worry and fear. Yet, Surrendering to God brings a peace that control can never provide. When we release our grip on the outcomes and trusting our lives to God, we experience the freedom of surrender. In letting go, we acknowledge that God's wisdom and love are greater than our own, allowing Him to work miracles through our trust in His plan. Pain often humbles us, bringing us to a place where we recognize our limitations. But it is in humility that we find the strength to lean on God. In our brokenness, God meets us, teaching us that true strength isn't found in self-reliance, but in surrender. As we humble ourselves before Him, God lifts us up, filling us with His power, wisdom, and love to face each day. Often, pain is linked to regret, to memories we wish we could erase. But God's grace covers our past, redeeming every mistake and turning it into a testimony of His mercy. When we let go of our regrets, we make room for God's forgiveness and healing. In His hands, our past becomes a tool for future blessings as He uses our experiences to help others find healing and hope. God has a unique way of creating beauty from brokenness. Like a mosaic crafted from shattered pieces, He takes our pain, our past, and our scars and arranges them into something beautiful and meaningful. The broken areas of our lives become spaces where His light shines through, revealing His work in us. When we embrace our brokenness, we allow God to transform it, turning our pain into a masterpiece of His love and grace. In a world that values independence, God calls us to a life of dependence on Him. Pain reveals our need for God's strength, wisdom, and love. When we lean on Him, we discover that true strength lies in our relationship with Him. As we depend on God, we grow closer to Him, finding a source of hope and comfort that sustains us through every trial. Our dependence on Him is not a weakness, but a blessing that deepens our faith and trust. God's restoration goes beyond our wildest expectations. He doesn't simply patch up the broken pieces. He rebuilds and transforms. His restoration brings healing and newness, crafting a future that exceeds what we once thought possible. When we trust in His promise to restore, we open ourselves to the fullness of His blessing, experiencing renewal that touches every part of our lives. In times of darkness, God's light shines even brighter. He guides us through our pain, illuminating the path ahead and providing hope in every moment. Even when we can't see the way forward, God's light leads us, reminding us that we are never alone. By trusting in His presence, we find strength to keep moving forward, knowing that His light will always overcome any darkness we face. God wants us to live with expectation, to trust that He is working all things together for our good. When we live in expectation, we prepare our hearts for the blessings He has in store. We can look forward with hope, knowing that God's plans are full of goodness and purpose. Living in expectation doesn't mean life will be without trials, but it does mean that we believe God is leading us to a future filled with His promises. As we receive God's love and healing, we are called to share that love with others. Our experiences of pain and restoration become a testimony that inspires hope in those around us. By reflecting God's love, we become vessels of His grace, offering comfort, encouragement, and support to those who are hurting. When we share God's love, we participate in His plan to bring healing and blessing to the world. In the journey of life, pain is something none of us can escape. But through every hardship, every tear, and every trial, God's unwavering promise stands. He is about to turn your pain into a blessing beyond what you can imagine. Every setback, every struggle, and every heartache is preparing you for a purpose that's greater than anything you've known. Remember, His ways are higher than ours, and He works in ways we cannot always see. Trust in His timing, for when God transforms pain into blessing, it brings a joy that runs deep and lasts forever. Your story isn't over. It's being written by the one who holds eternity in His hands, and His plan is to bring you hope, joy, and victory. Thank you for watching, and may this message remind you of God's incredible faithfulness. He sees you, He knows your heartache, and He's working to bring you a blessing that will surpass your greatest dreams. If this video encouraged you, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspirational content. Remember, no matter what you're going through, God is with you, and He is about to turn it all around for good. Keep holding on to Him and let His love and promises be your strength. Until next time, stay blessed and keep the faith. God's got something amazing in store for you.